Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, dogs and cats, elves and zebras, gypsies, and the she. And here we go. Today's episode I will be reading the entire American Heritage Dictionary, 70,000 entries. It's going to take a while. I am going to start the American Heritage Dictionary, 5th edition. No, I'm not going to do that. No, sorry folks, that's not going to happen. So what I'm going to talk about is what is the next two elections. I am really worried. I am very worried. We have extremists on both the right and the left. The extremists on the right don't have the numbers to do what they may want to do. The extremists on the left do have the numbers, and they have the power because they have Twitter, they have Google. I mean the people on the top, okay, the people who run everything. They have Google, they have YouTube, they have Twitter, they have Facebook. You know, the owners, founders, operators of these websites are clearly far left. YouTube has been trying to silence free speech. I was watching a Crowder video the other day, and YouTube has come up with a new way to censor videos, and so I'm really worried. You know, this upcoming election, there's a guy in our area who's running as a Republican. Last time he ran, he said he was the conservative choice. Well, I happen to have known this guy. I don't know him anymore, but I used to know the guy. I know the people he associates with, and let me tell you, they are not conservatives. In my opinion, he is not even close to being a conservative. You know, it's and I forget the term. It was the Fabian Society, I believe. You know, he's not a member of any Fabian Society that I'm aware of, but the people he's associated with, they are like that. They will run as something that they're not. And I'm not going to say his name, but people in our town, I'm warning you, he's not somebody you want to vote for. He doesn't even live in our town anymore. He used to. But he's not a conservative. He's not close to being a conservative. Right, John? So, anyway, so what I'm trying to get at is this. I'm really worried about the next two elections. I mean, really worried. I'm really worried about what's going to happen. So, depending on what happens this election, depending on what happens between now and the next presidential election, the depending on what happens after the next presidential election. Things could go bad anytime, because, I mean, you have on the left Nazis. I mean, that is essentially what they are. I mean, Black Lives Matter and all these other groups that are violent, that want to shut down anybody that they disagree with, even their own people sometimes. And they use violence. I mean, there's a YouTube channel called the Young Turks, and their leader is very angry. Actually, quite a few of them on that program are very angry people for some reason. And their leader, I don't remember how you say his name, he's a liar. He said, I don't remember if it was about Dr. Jordan Peterson or who it was, but no, I think it was, goodness, I have, actually I may not have that book over here. Actually, I have several of the man's books, and anyway, I don't remember his name, but he said, the guy said, all Muslims. He never said all Muslims. He said, those Muslims that are causing the problems. That's the same way I feel. I could care less if you're a Muslim or not. If you know, you could be a Christian and cause problems. You know, you could be a Jew and cause problems. You could be a Buddhist and cause problems. You could be an atheist and cause problems. But you know, he's talking about a select group of Muslims. And then the guy from Sync or whatever it is said, oh, all Muslims. Yeah, he said all Muslims. That's not what he said. There's a reason the Young Turks are losing viewership and therefore losing money, because you lie about people, and you know, that's going to happen. But here's what I'm thinking of doing. I haven't decided where I'm going to do this yet. I do have 3 states in mind: Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. More likely than not, it will either be New Hampshire or Maine. And I hope my beautiful wife, who's in the living room, will do it with me. But if she decides not to do it with me, I will understand, believe me. It would be a very, very hard life. I'm going to find some area, again, most likely New Hampshire or Maine. Believe me, there are places around. There are places in these 2 states that you can do this. You can do it in West Texas too. I'm going to basically take what I need. You know, I'm going to head out into the woods. It's going to be a new way of living. It's going to be a really hard way of living. But, you know, and other groups that are problematic: NBC, CBS, ABC, MSNBC, CNN, Fox, but they're on the other side. Right now I don't consider them as much of a threat, but I do consider them to be potentially as much of a threat as these other news sources. I can't remember the guy's name now. There's a guy. He used to be on the left. He's still a liberal. You can consider me a liberal insofar as classical liberalism. But John, I'm getting upset. But anyway, Dave Rubin, that's his name. If you watch this far into the video, I suggest you look his channel up. I highly suggest looking up Dave Rubin's interview with Larry Elder. You want to talk about a fantastic interview. That's the interview to look at. Another video I would suggest, and if I could find these, maybe I'll provide them in that link right down there. There is a presentation by Mr. Elder where he's talking about his father, himself. Come on, John. And no, stay out of my cup. And his two brothers. John, you want to be on the internet? Looky there. Yeah. Now you have to get into something right now, don't you, big boy? But you know, like I said, but anyway, that presentation. Oh boy, that was a powerful presentation. It was kind of short, but oh boy, it was about basically he and his father's relationship, between he and his father, and how the relationship was repaired. And he has a book that deals with it, and I'm like, first I really didn't have an interest in the book, but after I saw that presentation, I was like, that book may be worth reading. So anyway, so I hope it doesn't come to that. I hope it doesn't come to having to go live in the mountains, in the forest, because it wouldn't be right around here, because this area is a combination of too heavily populated and too much traffic. It is rural, but not rural enough to do what I plan on doing. And there's a lot of traffic in and out. There are hikers, backpackers, campers, tourists, you know, shoppers, people going to and from work. You know, like people may have a job in Keene, but they may live in Massachusetts, so they're driving through. And so they come through. You have trucks that deliver. You know, you have, I mean, you 18-wheelers, and you have UPS and all this, and you have people that come through because they go to say Keene for medical appointments. And you have people that come from Vermont and Massachusetts that shop here in New Hampshire because we don't have a state sales tax. So you do have a lot of people coming and going. So this area is too heavily populated and too much traffic. So I really wouldn't do it in this area. It would be further north. Actually, that's north. That's not. That actually, yeah, that's north, because Keene is north of us, so that's north. Anyway, but into Massachusetts that way, and that's south. So north can't be that way and south that way. So anyway, I'd have to look at a map. I couldn't do it around here. It would be far too easy to find me. The thing is, like I said, I would prefer to do it with Lisa and not by myself, but I'll do what I have to do. It's that simple. I'm going to do what I have to do. And if all hell breaks loose like I fear, then hopefully by then I'll have a flintlock rifle. Actually, hopefully by then I'll have a flintlock smoothbore 62 caliber, I think that's a 12 gauge. There are other rocks, stones that can be used aside from flint, but first I'd have to go out into the mountains and find a place, or if it's really, really, really bad, I mean, if it really gets bad fast the way I fear, I won't have time to go scouting. I will have to just go and just find a place, and I can build all sorts of shelters. Of course, it would be much easier if there was a group of people doing it and not just one person. I would have to grow at least a small garden. It wouldn't be very big because I'd have to rely on the forest for most of my food, which means I would have to learn how to hunt. It's just something I don't want to have to do. I don't want to have to kill anything, but you have these gun control nuts out there who want to take everybody's guns away. Our economy is actually getting worse, not better. In the long term, it's getting worse, not better. Actually, in the short term, it's actually gotten better. But I fear we are at a point not dissimilar to Germany in the 20s and early 30s, mainly the mid to late 20s. These violent groups, and they're openly violent, and there are people who are committing acts of violence, and they're being allowed to get away with it. There are people who lie about that violence. There are protected groups. I saw a program with Ben Shapiro. Calling a Jew a Nazi is really one of the dumbest things in the world. Mr. Shapiro is Jewish, a practicing Jew, and there was a lady, a transgendered woman, who on camera threatened him, grabbed him, if I remember correctly, grabbed him by the neck, by the back of the neck, and threatened him. He said he went to the police, but the police said, well, she's a part of a protected group, so we are not going to press charges. That's scary. That's real effing scary. That we have people that can get away with crimes, but because they're a part of a protected group, whatever group that is, they don't get in trouble for it. We're living in very, very scary times. I highly recommend people watch Mr. Jordan Peterson, Dr. Jordan Peterson, excuse me. And for those who don't know why I call him Dr. Jordan Peterson, he has a PhD, but he is not an MD. He's not a medical doctor, but PhDs, for those who don't know, most people do know, I hope. People with a PhD are referred to as doctor. I had a history professor, his name, I'm not going to say his name, but it was Doctor, his name. And I respected him too. But, one of the stepkids, he and his wife would be a major asset to have out there. He's very industrious. He doesn't let anything stop him. He knows about all sorts of stuff, and I think he would be a major asset when it came to hunting and and maybe building shelters and other structures. And not just that, but they're my stepkids. I mean, he's my stepkid, but there are other stepkids as well. I would rather them go than not go. And of course, my daughter in Texas, she would be welcomed as well. She would be invited. My sister in Texas, my sister in Indiana, they would also be invited. But I hope it doesn't come to that, but I fear it will. Now, one thing is, if it does come to that, hopefully there'll be time, because come winter, I could get a sled, or I mean, I have a sled, but I don't know if I would use that. I mean, the sled I have was my sled when I was a little boy in Germany, and it's not really for that. It's actually a Swiss sled. It was built in Switzerland. I don't think the company's around anymore, but it's a real famous brand. But I'd get like a toboggan, and I could put more stuff on the toboggan than I could carry on my back. And I could just, with cross-country skis and or snowshoes, depending on the terrain, I could pull much more weight behind me that way than I could carry on my back. So I could like go back into the forest, find the place I want to live, build a temporary shelter, long-term temporary shelter. Then come winter, I could come back out, gather what needs to be gathered, and take it back to the area. But I'm talking going out for days and days. I'm not talking about going out for hiking for a few hours through the forest and setting down roots. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about hiking for days and days and days and days, maybe a week or two or three. I mean, really exploring, maybe going for months. Just because there's a temporary shelter doesn't mean I'm going to have to stay right there. I could scout the area, and if I don't like it, I could go somewhere else, make another temporary shelter, scout that area, and so forth and so on. So it'll probably be the going east-west, not north-south, going east-west. It'll be central or northern New Hampshire, or just about any of the unpopulated areas of Maine. And it seems like Maine has most of its population near the coast, so I would just stay away from that area. So anyway, I just hope it doesn't come to that.